The Young and the Restless Spoilers The Fast Lane to Love, Billy and Sally's Journey. Billy Abbott and Sally Spectra's whirlwind romance had taken Genoa City by storm. What began as casual flirtation quickly blossomed into something deeper, an intense connection that felt as natural as it was electric. Their chemistry was undeniable, their laughter contagious, and their shared moments of vulnerability drew them closer at lightning speed. But as their relationship deepened, whispers of doubt began to creep into the corners of their fast-paced love story. Was this too good to be true? And more importantly, was it built on a solid foundation, or a house of cards? Billy, ever the gambler in both business and life, was at a crossroads. He had nothing tangible to offer Sally, no empire to call his own, no plan for the future. His life had been marked by failed ventures and impulsive decisions, leaving him feeling like a shadow of the man he wanted to be. But behind him loomed the formidable Jill Abbott, his mother and a powerful figure in the business world. While Billy might have been down, he was far from out, a fact Sally undoubtedly knew. Sally, on the other hand, seemed to bring out the best in Billy. She spoke of dreams and ambitions, of building something meaningful together, and Billy found himself believing in her vision. She wanted to grow alongside him, to be more than just a partner in love but a partner in life. Their nights were filled with passionate confessions and intimate discussions about the future. For the first time in a long time, Billy felt a sense of hope. The ultrasound revelation one night, after a particularly tender evening together, Sally took a deep breath and reached for the envelope she had tucked away in her purse. "Billy," she began, her voice soft yet serious. "There's something I need to show you." Billy sat up in bed, his brow furrowing with curiosity. "What is it?" he asked, sensing the gravity in her tone. Sally handed him the envelope, her hands trembling slightly. Billy opened it carefully, his eyes scanning the contents before widening in surprise. It was an ultrasound photo, a tiny, grainy image of a new life growing inside her. "I'm pregnant," Sally said, her voice breaking into a hesitant smile. "You're going to be a dad." Billy stared at the photo, his emotions swirling. Shock, joy, and disbelief collided within him. He looked up at Sally, who was watching him intently, her green eyes shimmering with a mix of hope and fear. I don't know what to say," Billy admitted. "This is amazing, Sally. I mean, I didn't expect," he trailed off, his words catching in his throat. Sally leaned in, placing a hand on his cheek. "I know it's a lot to take in," she said gently. "But I believe in us, Billy. I believe we can do this, together." The hidden truth, what Billy didn't know, was that the joy he felt in that moment was built on a lie. The baby Sally carried wasn't his, it was Adam Newman's. Sally's relationship with Adam had ended in chaos, and she knew there was no going back. Adam was emotionally unavailable, unpredictable, and unwilling to give her the stability she craved. When she discovered she was pregnant, she realized she couldn't rely on Adam to step up. But Billy? Billy was kind, steady, and eager to build a future. He was everything Adam wasn't. For Sally, claiming Billy as the father of her child wasn't just about survival, it was about building a life she could believe in. She wasn't trying to manipulate him out of malice. She genuinely cared for Billy and saw a chance for them to create something beautiful together. But deep down, she knew the foundation of their relationship was fragile. If Billy ever discovered the truth, it could shatter everything they had built. Billy's growing doubts in the days that followed, Billy couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. While he was genuinely excited about the baby, he couldn't ignore the nagging voice in the back of his mind. He replayed their conversations over and over, searching for clues. Sally's sudden revelation had caught him off guard, and the timing felt almost too convenient. Was it possible she was hiding something? Billy had always been intuitive, even if he didn't always trust his instincts. And now, his instincts were telling him to dig deeper. He couldn't help but wonder about Sally's past, about Adam. He knew their relationship had been tumultuous, and he couldn't ignore the possibility that Adam might still be lingering in the shadows of Sally's life. One night, as Sally slept beside him, Billy stared at the ultrasound photo on the nightstand. He wanted to believe her. He wanted to trust her. But the seeds of doubt had already been planted, and they were growing by the day. The confrontation. Billy decided he couldn't keep his suspicions to himself any longer. One evening, as they sat together in the living room, he turned to Sally, his expression serious. "Sally," he began, his voice steady but firm, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me." Sally looked at him, her heart sinking. She could feel the weight of his words before he even spoke them. "What is it?" she asked, trying to keep her voice calm. Billy hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath. "Are you sure this baby is mine?" The question hung in the air like a thunderclap. Sally's face fell, and she looked away, unable to meet his gaze. Her silence spoke volumes, and Billy felt his heart sink. "Tell me the truth, Sally," he said, his voice breaking. "I deserve to know." Sally's hands clenched in her lap. She had wanted to tell him, but the fear of losing him had kept her silent. Now, she had no choice. "Billy," she said softly, tears streaming down her face, "I didn't plan this. I didn't want to hurt you. But the baby isn't yours. It's Adam's." Billy felt as though the ground had been ripped out from under him. He stood up, pacing the room as he tried to process her words. "So this was all a lie," he said, his voice rising. "You let me believe I was going to be a father. You let me think we were building a life together. Why, Sally? Why would you do this?" Sally stood as well, reaching for him. "Because I care about you, Billy," she said desperately. "Because I see a future with you. I couldn't go back to Adam, I didn't want to. You're the one I want to be with. You're the one I trust." "What happens next?" Billy stood there, torn between anger and heartbreak. Part of him wanted to walk away, to leave Sally and her lies behind. But another part of him, the part that had fallen for her so deeply, hesitated. Could he forgive her? Could he still build a future with her, even knowing the truth? The answer wasn't clear. But one thing was certain, the road ahead wouldn't be easy. The weight of betrayal, Billy's story. Billy Abbott stared at the remnants of his trust, shattered once again by someone he had allowed into his heart. It wasn't the first time he had been betrayed, but somehow, the sting never dulled. He had always prided himself on being the kind of man who believed in second chances, who saw the good in people even when they couldn't see it in themselves. But time after time, that belief was thrown back in his face, leaving him to question not just the people he trusted but his own judgment. This time, it was Sally Spectra. Billy had let himself believe in her. In them. He had convinced himself that this time would be different, that he had found someone who saw him not as a failure or a playboy but as a man trying to rebuild his life. Sally had come into his world like a breath of fresh air, fiery, ambitious, and unapologetically herself. For the first time in a long time, Billy felt like he could breathe, like he wasn't just drifting through life. He saw a future with her. And then she handed him that ultrasound photo. At first, he had been overwhelmed with joy. The idea of being a father again, of building a family with Sally, had filled him with a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. But that joy was fleeting. The truth, that the child wasn't his, ripped the ground out from under him. The betrayal felt more than personal, it felt like a cruel confirmation of everything he had come to fear about his place in the world. A lifetime of broken trust. Billy's relationships had always been complicated, to say the least. Every time he had opened his heart, it seemed to end in disappointment. Victoria, the mother of his children, had been the love of his life once. But their relationship was a storm of highs and lows, of love and resentment. She had seen his flaws too clearly, and eventually, they had pulled her away from him. Then there was Phyllis, whose fiery passion had matched his own but who ultimately left him feeling like an afterthought. And now Sally. Sally, who had looked him in the eye and told him they could build a future together, all while hiding a secret that changed everything. Billy couldn't understand why this kept happening. Was it him? Was he too trusting, too quick to give people the benefit of the doubt? Or was it the universe, playing some cruel joke on him, constantly reminding him that he was destined to fall short? He had sacrificed so much, his time, his energy, his heart, trying to be enough for the women in his life. But it never seemed to matter. No matter how hard he tried, he always ended up being the one who was left behind, the one who wasn't quite good enough. And now, with Sally, it felt like the final nail in the coffin of his hope. Sally's dilemma. Sally sat alone in the apartment she now shared with Billy, her mind racing. She couldn't escape the image of his face when she had finally confessed the truth. The pain, the anger, the disbelief. It was all etched into his features, and she knew she had caused it. She didn't want to hurt him, but she also knew she couldn't go back and undo what had happened. Adam Newman. His name still lingered in her mind, a reminder of her complicated past. She had loved Adam once, or at least she thought she had. But love with Adam was never simple. It was a tug-of-war, a game of control and vulnerability. There was a magnetism about him, an undeniable pull, but it came at a price. With Adam, there was always a price. When she found out she was pregnant, Sally had considered going to Adam. But the thought of it filled her with dread. Adam was not the man she needed him to be, not now. Maybe he never would be. She didn't see a future with him, not one where she could feel secure, loved, and valued. And yet, her heart wasn't ready to completely close that door. The future was a question mark, and she couldn't predict what would happen between her and Adam. But in the present, she had chosen Billy. Or had she? Sally knew deep down that her decision to involve Billy wasn't entirely selfless. She wanted stability, a partner she could rely on, someone who wouldn't leave her floundering in the chaos of her own emotions. Billy was that person. Or, at least, she hoped he could be. But now, after everything that had happened, she wasn't so sure. Billy's struggle to move forward in the days following Sally's confession, Billy felt like a ghost in his own life. He went through the motions, work, family obligations, the endless responsibilities that came with being a part of the Abbott dynasty, but his mind was elsewhere. He couldn't stop thinking about Sally, about the baby, about the pattern of betrayal that seemed to define his life. Part of him wanted to walk away, to leave Sally behind and never look back. But another part of him, the part that had fallen for her, that still cared for her, hesitated. He saw something in Sally that reminded him of himself. A deep longing for redemption, for stability, for a fresh start. Maybe that was why he had fallen for her so quickly. She was as broken as he was, and together, they had started to piece themselves back together. But now, he wasn't sure if their bond was strong enough to withstand the truth. Billy sat in his car one evening, staring out at the skyline of Genoa City. He thought about Jill, his mother, and all the times she had told him to be smarter, to think things through, to stop letting his heart lead him into trouble. She would tell him to walk away from Sally, to cut his losses and move on. And maybe she was right. But Billy wasn't sure he could. "I've sacrificed so much," he murmured to himself, his voice barely audible in the quiet of the car. Why does it always end like this? The crossroads. As Billy and Sally navigated the fallout of her confession, one thing became clear: their relationship would never be the same. Billy was left with a choice: to trust Sally and try to build something real despite the betrayal, or to walk away and protect himself from further pain. For Sally, the stakes were just as high. She knew she had hurt Billy, but she also knew she couldn't undo what had happened. All she could do now was be honest, to prove to him that she cared and that she wanted to make things work. But would that be enough? As they sat across from each other one evening, the silence between them heavy with unspoken words, Sally finally broke it. "Billy," she said softly, "I'm sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I need you to know that I care about you. I want to make this work." Billy looked at her, his eyes searching hers for any sign of deception. "I want to believe you, Sally," he said quietly. "But I've been here before. And I don't know if I can go through it again." The question hung in the air, unspoken but undeniable. Would this be the moment that broke Billy Abbott for good?